We could double church attendance in America simply by reaching the people we've already reached. We could double the number of the amount of giving. We could double the number of volunteers that we have. We could double the amount of good that we can do simply by reaching the people we have already reached in America. And I want to talk to you today about going after inactive church members and church members who don't attend. We're talking about people who believe the Bible. We're talking about people who believe that Jesus died on the cross for their sins. We're talking about people who have placed their faith in Christ and have surrendered it to Him at one time or another in Lord. We're talking about people who believe the Bible and who believe in the church. And if we can simply figure out a way to go after them, good things will happen as a result. And I want to talk to you, teacher, about how you can embrace the responsibility of going after inactive church members. And let me say to you again, as I think I've said to you before, I mean for this video to be a conversation. I don't pretend to know everything there is to know about this topic. And I hope you will write some comments in the notes below. I hope you will Google this and read some things that I haven't written. There has been a lot written in it. I've read a good deal of it, but I encourage you to read some things and experiment with some things and try some things, share your insights, ask your question, and let's figure out how we can reach the already reached, because Jesus taught this was really important. John 21:15 through 17 says, when he had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, listen up. Do you love me more than these?" Some debate about what he meant by these. Some people think it's by these other disciples. Do you love me more than these other disciples love me? I can't prove it, but I think Jesus was pointing to the nets. Peter has gone back to fishing here, and I think Jesus pointed to the nets and said, "Peter, do you love me more than these nets?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." We think of the Great Commissions as the last words Jesus ever said, and maybe they were. But if they were, these were the second to the last words, and certainly the second to the most important things Jesus ever said to his people, and a very, very important things he said to us. Feed my lambs. He was concerned not only with the lost, and we ought to teach the Great Commission, and we ought to evangelize the lost, but we ought to go after also the wandering. And just before Jesus ascended to his Father, he said, "Peter, Simon Peter, son of John, do you love me? If you love me, feed my lambs." My lambs. I want you to feed my lambs, and you can't feed my lambs if they're not in the room. Feed my lamb. Again, Jesus said to him, "Simon, son of God, son of John, do you love me?" Peter answers, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." And just by the way, there's some emphasis in, if you've ever heard a sermon on this passage, on the idea that there's an interplay between the word agape and phileo. And some people make a big deal of this. I personally don't. The gist is, Jesus said, "Do you agape me?" And Peter said, "Yes, I phileo you." And Jesus said again, "Do you agape me?" And Peter said again, "Yes, I phileo you." And Jesus said again, "Do you even phileo me?" And there is an interplay, but I don't really think that was a point. In the third instance, we'll get to it just a moment, it says Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time. And I think this is just a literary variety, and I'm not alone in my view on that, by the way, and everyone doesn't agree on it. But anyway, he answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." And what was on Jesus' heart just before he left? My sheep. Take care of my sheep. And you, teacher, need to take care of his sheep, all of his sheep. And we want to chat about how we can do this. The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him, "Do you agape me?" rather than, "Do you phileo me?" No, he said Jesus was hurt because he asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "If you love me, feed my sheep. Take care of my sheep. Look after my sheep." And we learn something about the heart of God in this passage, that taking after his sheep, going after the wandering, is very, very important to Jesus. A couple other verses that deal with this, James 5:19 and 20. "My brothers and sisters, if any one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way shall save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins. And we want to be people who bring those people back, those wandering people back. One more verse, Galatians 6:1. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. Restore that person, but watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. And a couple of theological issues I'd like for us to deal with about this, and I'd like for you to deal with this and deal with this often in your class. The first one is this: what are the odds this will happen? I would encourage you to invite you to read this passage to your people and say, what are the odds it'll happen to you? You see, we tend to divide the world into two categories, and that is kind of good guys and bad guys. There's us saints and there's them sinners, and we think we're the ones that didn't wander and they're the ones that did, and so they're the bad people and we're the good people, and that's that. But the Bible teaches there is no difference, and that we are all wandering, and all of our hearts are, as the old hymn writer said it, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. I feel it, and it could happen to me. And the people who have wandered are not fundamentally different, and we need to have a profound awareness that I am a sinner, and I am capable of wandering, and I'm not fundamentally different than they are. And a second theological issue that we need to think about as we think about this issue of going after the wandering, and that is this: whose job is it to go after the wandering? Is it the pastor's job? Is it the staff's job? Is it the deacon's job? Well, that's part of their job, but it's not only their job. It's also your job, teacher, and it's your job to teach people that it is also their job. It is all of our responsibility. I say to my people almost every week, the church is not a show to attend. It's a family to be a part of, and you are a part of the family of God, and you are responsible, and you have a job, and you can do some things that nobody else can do. And fundamentally, what we need to do, we need to reach the lost, and we need to take care of the people that God has already saved. Members of this group, people who are a part of this group, we need to go after them, and we need to all work on that together. Let's look at a little research related to this. One study found that 82% of the people who drop out of church do so in the first year of their membership. So this teaches us that the most important part of someone's journey into the faith is in that first year. And if you can work real hard at assimilating those new members, you can assure that they will not wander from the faith. And two things that you can do to help to assimilate. And this comes from one of Lyle Shaller's old books on this. Everyone needs to find a friend, and everyone needs to get a job. Everyone needs to find a friend. When you get a new person in the church, you want to try to shepherd them until they have a friend, so until they have some natural friends in the group, and you want to try to get everyone a job. That's why in every group we want to have in-reach leaders and outreach leaders and care group leaders and fellowship leaders and people who will plan mission projects, and a class organizer who will organize this all the stuff, because I found often teachers are not all that good at it, so we get administrators to administrate all this stuff. Every church needs more children's workers. We need more preschool workers. We need more youth workers. We need more greeters. We need people to help clean up the place. We want to get everyone a job. You want to get everyone in your group to have a job, and particularly those new people to have a job, because 82% of people who drop out of church will do so in the first year of their joining. Lifeway research learned that 62% of inactive church members are open to the idea of returning to church. It really should say they're opening to the idea of returning to church, because people tend to over-report good behavior and under-report bad behavior. So they're probably being a little more optimistic about themselves than they really are. But the point is, the fields really are wider to harvest, and those who are inactive say, if you will just invite me back. Another research project said that 41% said that they would return if they were simply invited back. If they were simply invited back. I asked on several groups I'm on Facebook this week in preparation for this video, what could we do? What ideas do you have for reaching out to inactive members? And one person said, I think he addresses to a pastor, but I believe it could apply to you as a Sunday school teacher, as a Bible study leader. And that he says, just need to make a 60-second phone call every week with all your people. Have a 60-second phone call with them and say, I would just want to call you real quick. You got anything going on in your life that I need to know about? Anything I need to pray about? Listen for just a second and then said, great, I'll see you Sunday. I'll see you Sunday. I'll see you Sunday. Try to build that expectation every week. You contact them every week, 60-second conversation. I like that idea. And say to them, I'll see you Sunday. Nothing that you need to do is, and this has to do with keeping people from wandering, and that is teach often about the power of habit. Teach often about the power of habit. Hebrews 10:24 and 25 says, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing. And he's pointing out to us that many people wander from the faith, not because they rebel against God, not because they become atheists, not because they disagree with their theology or they're mad at God or any kind of theological reason. They just got sick one weekend and they didn't show up for church. And then their kid had a soccer tournament the next week and they didn't show up. And then their in-laws came to town the next week. And the next week they just flat forgot about it. And the next week they flat forgot about it. And the next week they remembered, but now they're kind of embarrassed to go back. And they just got out of the habit. And probably the opposite is true with many of you. You attended the church this last week, not because you got up and said, I resolved to go to church, but simply because you made it a habit. And life is largely a function of habits. And you want to teach often about this. You want to teach people the idea that if you will go to church every week for about 3 months, you'll never think about not going to church again. It will get your attention anytime you don't go to church. And let habits be your friend. Another good habit we want to all get in is starting the day with our Bible on our lap. And again, you need to do that every day without exception for about 3 months. And if you do it every day without exception for about 3 months, you'll find that on that 91st day, you will start your day with the Bible on your lap, not because you tried really hard, not because you're resolved, not because you're so dedicated and committed, simply because it's a habit. And let habits be your friend, as this verse reminds us of here. But I want to give you two ideas. One is kind of a tried and true idea, and another is a brand new idea. I'm a card-carrying member of the Idea of the Day Club, and this may not be a good idea. I don't know. Like to hear your comments about this idea in the comments below. But let me give you my tried and true idea, and then I'm going to give you idea of the day idea that I haven't tried, but I think it might be a good idea. But the tried and true idea is this, and that is to invite every member and every prospect to have every fellowship every month. Now, the fellowship might not be a fellowship. It might be a service project of some kind. You might go out into a neighborhood and pick up trash. You might go to a local school and help them in some way. But once a month, you want to do something together as a group. And once a month, you want to call every member and top third that come all the time, middle third that come half the time or so, bottom third that never come. Don't call them and nag them to church. You might want to do that from time to time. Sure have missed you. Love to have you come back and so on. But once a month, you want to call them and say, you know what? A bunch of us are going to go out and watch a movie this Friday night. We'd love to have you come. Everybody's going to come over. We're going to order pizza, and we'd love to see you there. And I've seen it happen more times than I can count. If you can get them to the party, you couldn't keep them from class. Attendance is largely a social thing, and that social connection, that relational connection is huge. And if you will connect with them relationally, they'll tend to show up for class. And so every month you want to have a party, and as an outreach thing, you would invite people who are prospects for your class. And then as an in-reach thing, you want to invite top third, middle third, bottom third, and you want to see that somebody is doing this. You don't want to do it all yourself, teacher. You want to involve the whole group in this project. Invite every member and every prospect to every fellowship every month. And the new idea I got to thinking about just the other night. I'd be curious to know if you like this idea, all right? It's based on Ephesians 2:21. It says, in him the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. So this is teaching us that we grow as we are connected together, as we're like a building joined together. And I want you to think about a building and the bricks in a building. And you might even make a graphic that looks like this, just a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that looks like it's got some bricks on it, black lines on that white background. And you might write your name in the middle of that piece of paper, and then invite the people in your group to write their name on the bricks around you. And then the next group write their names on the bricks around them, and so on and so on and so on. And then the people who are not there, you want to write their name. And of course, you could just scatter things out as you like. I think it'll work best if you figure out a way where I can be connected to the people that I have the most natural rapport with. If there's some people in the group who are tennis players, let's put them next to me, because it's easy for me to contact them and say, hey, listen, I feel like going playing tennis. Let's go play some tennis. If you've got something in common, in addition to Jesus, it helps with your relationships. And so you want to have some give and take and some flexibility about where you put the names on that brick wall. But the idea is every week we're going to maybe put that brick wall on a poster. And every week I'm going to look at that and say, I'm responsible for those 5 people who are around me. And I want to pray for them. I'm going to try to pray for everybody if I can, but I want to pray for those 5 people. And if I notice that some of those people are not here 2 or 3 weeks in a row, I'm going to call them. And I'm going to contact them. And this allows everybody to be involved. It allows everybody to be involved in inreach and outreach. And if you do this, my thought is that you would reshuffle the deck, so to speak. That is, you'd start with a blank piece of paper, maybe about once a quarter. And that way we get some new contacts and new relationships. And we're not defining who your best friend is. If you didn't end up connected to your best friend, that's okay. You can still go to lunch with your best friend, all right? We're just saying we want you to be responsible for these people for the next 3 months. We want you to pray for them, and then if they're not here, we want you to contact them. We want you to call them and say, sure have missed you. Would love to have you here. We're going to have a party this week. Love to have you there. Well, I'd love to hear your ideas on that and any other ideas you have about going after the inactive church members, because I'm telling you, I believe this is a huge deal. Just before Jesus left, he said to Peter, and through him, I think he's saying to us, do you love me? Do you love the Lord? Do you love Jesus? Go after his sheep. Do you love him? Feed his sheep. And you can't feed a sheep unless his sheep are in the room. So let's work diligently at this, teacher, at going after the people that we have already reached.